Hi guys, how are you doing? Michael Linehan here, your Student Union President. So I've got quite a good bit of feedback, I suppose, on the last blog that I would have put up. So for this one, what I'm going to talk about in particular is the Munster Technological University, the whole merger process and what it will actually mean to you guys. Before I start, I suppose I just want to say congratulations to all the new sabbaticals and non-sabbaticals that got elected to the new executive team today. So that would be Shane Falvey, Ruth O'Leary, John O'Driscoll, Kate Meany, Rebecca Keating and David Brady. As well as that, I want to say that if any of you are counting the amount of times I say in this video, it'll be a lot of times. I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon, and if any of you have any ideas of starting a drinking game around it, I'm just going to say it even more so that I will, screw you guys over. So we'll kick straight into it, I suppose, around the merger, and I'm going to answer some of the questions that you guys have sent me over in the last week about it. So, the first one, as we become a technological university, will the students receive less interaction with academic staff? CIT was designed for the average students who benefit from one-to-one time with lecturers, not students who spend minimal hours in classes and the rest of their time on research. CIT is for the average student. How can we guarantee that the average student is not going to suffer and fall through the cracks of a university system? What is going to happen to the student? I think in the way that's worded, it kind of actually sells the not to use a better wanted term, the average student that's in CIT short a little bit. I don't think we're just average students. I think that we are a lot more hands-on in our approach to things than we'd say a student who might attend a university, and I think we've a lot of different skill sets to offer. I don't think that we're necessarily the average student and that university students are a step above us. And you find that when you actually go out into industry and you can actually do the work rather than talking about it. But I can see where this person's coming at with their question. Will we lose that kind of one-to-one interaction, the almost kind of student-teacher kind of aspect that we've got at the moment? In the next few years, regardless of mergers or whatever, it is projected that the student numbers in CIT will increase by about 8%. Now, I have some major concerns about this because the staff numbers are not going to increase at the same level. However, I don't think we're going to see the same kind of culture that we have in universities. I definitely think it's going to be pretty much the same as what we are now. Like CIT is punching well above its weight. TU status is all about just recognizing that. We're essentially an IoT, an Institute of Technology, which they traditionally have a focus on the level 6, 7s, 8s, but we also offer the masters, and now we're passing through a few doctors every year, so it's more just about recognizing how good of an institute that CIT is, and I definitely wouldn't say there's anything average about it. Now, on the whole thing about losing the interaction with students and staff, in the integration agreement that was passed by both governing bodies of CIT and IT Tralee, there is specific reference made to ensuring that level 6, 7s, 8s and access to education is maintained. So the fact that that's in the integration agreement plan with ourselves and IT Tralee, it's very reassuring. But perhaps maybe the President, Brendan Murphy, would be able to shed some more light on that when he comes to our general meeting taking place this Thursday, the 19th, at 1 to 2 in IT Tralee. So I'd be very interested to see what Brendan has to say on that question. The next question, we all know that the Leaving Cert point system is a supply and demand system. If we become a university, it's going to create a much greater supply and demand courses in CIT, and this will inevitably cause the point system to go up. Fair enough. This means that your average student who receives 220 to 320 points will struggle to get into college. What's going to happen to them? I don't think that's going to be the case. As I said previously, Technological University is about recognising, we'd say, our level 9s or level 10s that we already have going on within the institute, and increasing the levels of them that we are graduating every year. We will be maintaining the focus on the level 6 to level 8. With the whole supply and demand thing, it's not really projected that our student numbers will grow massively because of the merger. As I've already said in the last point, they will grow significantly, but it won't be because of the merger. It's actually more to do with performance, the performance compact set forward by the Higher Education Authority, which is basically like a set of goals that you need to meet. One of them being around the amount of students that you enroll every year, because basically you're funded on your student numbers. So that's why that performance measure is in there, and that's why it's going to increase, not specifically because of the merger. I really don't think that access to education for your students who receive the lower end of the points will be affected in a huge way. I think we already have seen an increase really in the points for a lot of our courses that we do offer in CIT. Is it necessarily a bad thing? I don't know. To be honest with you, it kind of gives that extra element of, you know, that CIT really is a high performing college, and that you need to work your ass off to get here. Having said that, I think the level 6 to 8, you know, level 6 and 7 courses that tend to be lower points will be protected going up through to Munster Technological University. Plain and simple, by taking on more campuses, this will have a knock-on effect on the student contribution. We don't need a political answer to this, we need guarantees. Student contribution fee. That's set nationally across the board. It has nothing to do with if CIT and IT Tralee decide to merge. Now, you might have seen in the past week, Kieran, I can't think of his name, basically the chairman of the IOTI, he's after coming out and saying that the institutes of technologies might have to start charging €1,000 extra to fund themselves over the next few years. Now, IOTs are underfunded. They're underfunded to about the tune of about €750 per student. That has nothing to do with mergers. That just has to do with the nature of the courses that IOTs specifically tend to provide. So we'd say the likes of your engineering courses, just for example, the kind of equipment that they use, the nature of the courses, it's not just like in a university, you know, where the majority of their courses are like, you know, your humanities, but you know, your courses where you've just got a load of students coming in, so you're getting their contribution fee, and then you've got them all sitting in a lecture hall, which is, you know, it's pretty cost effective to run per square meter when you know, compare it to something like an engineering lab or a science lab. So IOTs are actually underfunded anyway. Now, it has nothing to do with the merger whether the contribution fees will go up. But I don't see it going up to €4,000 a year for your CIT student or any student in an IOT. It would be political suicide, I think, for any government to introduce that. However, I do think that they still need this funding. Now, I think it should be publicly funded through the taxpayer, which most tuition fees already are, but basically that was kind of like a bit of extra ammunition really for the IOTI, just to say, look, we need the extra funding. And I think by scaring people into saying that it'll have to come from the student side, that it got into the media. However, it could just as easily come from the government that we actually get this increased funding. The level of funding, we'd say, as regards universities versus institutes of technology is very different, and that's why I think it's actually essential that we go for technological university status. At the end of the day, it means increased funding. If we stay within the realms of the IOT, we will continue to be underfunded, and that's where we will see a lot of issues. I don't think it will see differences in contribution fees for students because they're set nationally across the board, but it will just mean that in terms of your student services, that they'll be underfunded. And going forward, when we've got the increase in student population projected anyway, we're just going to be in a worse off situation and constantly spinning our wheels. So I think Technological University, in regards to funding, is extremely important. Now, another question on funding is, how is the merger going to be funded? Is it going to be through paying a higher student contribution fee? So no to the student contribution fee anyway, which was dealt with in the last question. But how is it going to be funded? Right. One of the questions that I would have actually put in there is it going to be funded through the Capital Development Reserve, which is basically a pot of money that is basically for your reserves, as it's not the day-to-day runnings of the business, but it's for the likes of your long-term projects, like your sports arena, which I'll come to within the next vlog, I promise. And those kind of, not necessarily nice to have, but big capital projects, new buildings like the Create building. For example, if there was to be, a new campus set up, a new building bought, that would be a capital development. So I would have actually been quite concerned that it would have been funded through the Capital Development Reserve. Now, I'm going to pull out here, if I have it to hand. Yep. So this is the stage 2 submission, basically from creating the Munster Technological University. And within that, it basically sets aside the business case for TU and how it's going to be funded and the goals of it, and basically everything. It was the entire submission that was sent to the international panel. Now, with the funding of the merger, that money is already there. It's going to be done through kind of different cash flows and working it that way, and the 6.7 million that is the projected cost of the merger, and one that certain unions have been throwing around recently, saying that we've got this big huge cost and we've no way of funding it. It's not true. It's going to be funded on a per annum basis, so that 6.7 million is going to be split throughout the merger and throughout actually us becoming TU. So it's going to be split over about, I think it's till about 2018 or something like that, or possibly 2020, I think. But basically, over the next few years, we're going to be paying it off piecemeal, and it's going to be done through existing cash flows and the projected surpluses that we actually see in the next few years going forward. And it is projected that we will actually make a return, I think it's by 2018, that we will actually have a return on what we've outlaid for the merger. As well as that, any additional fundings, we got funding this year from the HEA to the tune of about $750,000. That funding is additional to anything that was projected in the original cost for the merger. So you can rest assured that the capital projects won't be affected by the merger. The student contribution fee won't be affected by the merger. Just in terms of the CIT arena, just to give an update, that one is currently, the money is not there at the moment. The Capital Development Reserve had to be dipped into because of urgent health and safety works that went onto the roof of the canteen when the roof blew in last year. Very important kind of urgent works like that, and there was another one around replacement of gas cylinders as well. These are things that basically, unfortunately, because of, again, this comes back to the Institute of Technology sector being severely underfunded, in that we're not legally allowed to have a deficit. So when you get into the situation of a deficit looking likely because of your likes of your roof caving in, then you have to cover the costs with whatever you have. And it was unfortunate that, as much as honestly I fought in the Students' Union to protect this money, and I continue to fighting to protect the Capital Development Reserve on Finance Committee, there's nothing you can really do, because at the end of the day, the institute is in a real, legal kind of in a bad area there, really, if if they have a reserve and yet they're in the deficit. Now, hopefully the funding situation will improve within the next few years, and when we start seeing returns because of the merger project, I am quite and improved funding, I am quite confident that the project will still proceed. As well as that, in the integration agreement, the one that I had referenced previously between ourselves and IT Tralee, there's 6 projects named, 3 from Tralee, 3 from us, that take priority, and the CIT Arena is listed as one of those projects. So the fact that it's specified in this legal document between CIT and IT Tralee is quite reassuring, and I will address the sports arena or CIT Arena as it's now being called, in greater detail in another vlog. Now, to move on to the next question. Will the merger mean that certain students from certain courses will have to move to Tralee or vice versa? Short answer there, no. We've got guarantees that no student who has already started a course will have to move between either IT Tralee or CIT. The only thing is where you've got a course that has very low numbers in one campus, it might be brought to another campus just for feasibility. But this will be made clear at the outset of the CAO process, like it is in other colleges. You know, like someone who wants to do teaching that goes to UL, for example, that will be made very clear from the outset. It's not going to be a case that any student who is studying now within a course will be transferred to Tralee or vice versa. With departments spreading across 2 counties, will this eventually lead to a class of students sitting down in front of a computer in Bishopstown being taught by a lecturer down in Tralee via video feed on Blackboard? For practical courses, this quite clearly does not promote teaching. It is cost effective, yes, but it is not in the keen interest of students. Something CIT can be proud of is that there is a very good working relationship between academic staff and students. We can't afford to lose this. In the likes of your practical courses, I really can't see the whole kind of video feed element being used, the e-learning aspect. It's definitely something that, it's a good question to actually ask to Brendan Murphy. It's something that I don't really have an answer for myself. I'm being very honest. I'm not going to bull anyone on that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see as to how much the focus will be on e-learning and trying to make these kind of cost efficiencies in delivering a course. So I think that's a very valid question, and I look forward to hearing the President's answer on that one. Just a question regards to the proposed sports arena. Will this be affected now because of the merger? Will it still be completed? Is funding still there? And if so, will the plans be revisited with regards what facilities will be provided in the building, and if the students have any contribution to what facilities they feel are missing from the campus? Okay, the sports arena already kind of been addressed in one of my previous points and about the funding. As I said, I find it reassuring that it's listed in the merger integration agreement. So in terms of it being affected adversely by the merger, I don't think so. The money that is coming, that is funding the merger, basically has nothing to do with the CIT Arena or capital projects. It's actually the other day-to-day stuff, the lack of funding within the IoT sector that is affecting the sports arena negatively. So if we can turn around the funding situation through merging, through getting TU status, then I think that's actually going to have a much better long-term effect for our capital projects and the likes of the sports arena. The average student of CIT has not been informed about the merger at all. The extent of what they know is that we are becoming MTU, but most do not know the long process that is involved in this. and many do not fully understand to what extent CIT and IT Tralee will be merging. How do you plan on getting this information out to the general student population? We feel that as President of CIT, it is your job to keep the student informed of each and every development, as it doesn't only affect us, but every student that passes through the college over the next number of years. Very valid point. MTU, I think, is something that for the most part, sorry, that was my phone going off, but for the most part, it almost feels like it's still a rumour, and there's still questions as to, are we merging with Tralee? You know, it's still very much in the student's mind, up in the air. That was a deliberate thing on the Institute's part, and for good reason. At the time, I kind of, even though it was a large part of my manifesto to actually inform students on the merger, you can be very, I suppose, it's a fine line that you're trying to dance the whole time with, trying to keep the excitement there and at the same time not selling something that at the end of the day could still fall apart. And the last thing you want to do is excite people about a merger that hadn't been agreed yet. So the merger was only agreed as of the 25th of February. And now we had talked to Union Council last week about it, to the class rep, so that's the initial point of contact with communication feeding down the channel. And it was recognised at Union Council that students don't feel informed about it. I completely accept that. And from now on, what we're doing is we're going full on into an informational campaign about the merger, about the implications for you guys. So we will be providing that information over the coming weeks. It all starts, I suppose, with this vlog, with the meeting with Brendan, with the general meeting on Thursday. And by the way, can I just say that is open to all students. So 1 to 2 in IT Tralee, Thursday the 19th, open to every single student. So please come, and there'll be free pizza. And as well as that, it'll just be a great opportunity to ask any questions that you want to ask about the merger. So I suppose that wraps up everything that I have on the merger so far. If you guys have any other questions for me, email them to me at supresident@cit.ie. Unfortunately, we've sent off the questions that have come in thus far to the President, but we can facilitate more questions at the meeting. So we're going to leave a certain amount of time aside for people to ask questions on the day that they might think of as they're sitting there. So please come to the meeting Thursday the 19th in IT Tralee 1 to 2. See you there.